Hi, everybody. It's Mike Olszewski again, and welcome to Northeast Ohio Boomer and Beyond. Yeah, the new issue is out, and here's what it looks like. It's a pretty good one, too, I got to say. There's a lot of practical information in this one. I think you want to pick one up, and you know what? They do go kind of fast, so you want to keep that in mind. Paris Wolf has an article in this issue that I think is great. It's about the Lake Erie Islands. And you know what? She brings up a good point, too, because I've been to the islands. I've been to Put-in Bay, and it's wonderful, but go during the week if you can, because on the weekend it's a lot less crowded and a lot less noisy. Trust me. You know, there was a lot of stuff in these articles I didn't know about either. Hey, you know, another thing, too. If you're looking for a really good book and you like the islands, Bob Adamov is a local guy. He's a terrific author. And I'll tell you what, his fans are legion. And I have to warn you, if you pick up one of his books, it's pretty tough to put it down. So I wouldn't start reading it just before you went to bed, okay? Marie Iliam has an article that I think really hits home. It's about moving and downsizing. Okay, now we all have to do it at some point, and my wife Janice and I are doing it right now. And you know, we just need the room. You know, you get to the point where you say, "Hey, I've got all this stuff, but what's this stuff doing for me anymore?" Okay, so you just need the room. I'll tell you the truth. It's like moving a cemetery, really. Stuff that we thought was important a long time ago, or even just a couple of years ago, is now just taking up space. You know, think about it. Take a look around your own house and think about that. You know, that's one reason I'm running back and forth taping stuff. Now, I was in radio for a long time, and I've got hundreds, and I'm talking hundreds of tapes, and I'm just putting them now onto hard drives, okay? So instead of boxes stacked to the ceiling, I'm putting them on a hard drive that's about the size of your wallet. So give me the choice, I'm going to go that route. Also, anybody in radio has piles of tapes, too, and piles of T-shirts. We wear the T-shirts, obviously. They have a function, okay, other than just listening to them. You know, speaking of radio, I don't know one person who is ever in radio that does not need hearing aids right now. You see a lot of concerts close up. You just turn up the headphones, that sort of thing. And before you know it, people are asking what day it is, and you're saying, spaghetti. Your hearing is gone. So there's a really good article in the new Boomer about hearing aids, quite honestly. It's good, practical information. And, it's something you may want to keep aside just in case you don't need them right now. Hey, Brianna Mona always does a great job with her articles. There's one that's in this issue about fresh markets. And this one really kind of hits home because it used to be, farmers would just set up on the side of the road. They'd have a bunch of bushel baskets, maybe a bunch of hillbillies or something like that, and you'd go picking through the stuff. Now it's an event, okay? You go to any of these big markets, they got music, they've got, all kinds of entertainment. They've got rows and rows of all kinds of wonderful things. They've got bakeries, sometimes Amish bring in their own bakeries and things like that. And a lot of them even have cafes, which is terrific. So now is a good time to get your really fresh like vegetables and produce and things like that. A couple of months it's going to be pumpkin everything, okay? I saw pumpkin Cheerios last year. Overdoing it with the pumpkin thing. What's next? Pumpkin deodorant. I don't know. I think I gave somebody an idea right there. Maybe I shouldn't have. Estelle Rodas Brown. Now, she writes about freedom in this issue, and I guess that's kind of a subjective term. I remember the 4th of July when I was a kid running around with sparklers and stuff like that. We didn't care if we burned down a neighborhood. Usually they stopped you before you did. But freedom really is a subjective term. And a lot of people today think just because you're free to do something, you should do something, okay? That's not always a good idea. Here's a good example. Tattoos, okay? Now, look, I respect people with tattoos. I respect people who think some of them have an emotional link to that tattoo. And I will admit, I have seen some that were absolutely incredible. I had a friend who had Herman Munster. Remember Fred Gwynn as Herman Munster? He had Herman Munster on his leg, on his calf, and it looked like a sepia photo. This was a beautiful piece of art, I have to say it. It even made it to the cover of a tattoo magazine. Two things, okay? He told me, one, he wanted everybody to see it, so he always wore shorts, even in the winter. Got a little cold. Also, he had to keep shaving his leg, otherwise Herman Munster would have turned into the Wolfman before long. Anyway, look, a lot of people are just thinking about, hey, I'm going to go out and get a tattoo and that sort of thing. Here's my thought, okay? Think twice. I don't have any ink on me. My wife doesn't have any tattoos. I'm afraid of anything permanent. That's why I'm wearing glasses. I don't want LASIK, okay? But I'm going to wake up in the morning and I'm going to have like a snake on my arm or something like that and say, how did that happen? I hate snakes, okay? Don't really, but I don't want one hanging around me all the time. Think about your dad. If your dad was in World War II, he probably has a tattoo, okay? And I remember my dad had one. It was one of those old World War II ones that got blurry and green and all that over the years and not very attractive. They're a lot more sophisticated today. At any rate, I remember he had the state of Florida on his arm. And I could never understand why he had the state of Florida on his arm, because he had only been to Florida once. That was years after World War II, and that was on his honeymoon. And then it was over here, so he had all along here. And at one time he got a bad cut, so he had like a scar up here around Tallahassee. Anyway, one day I asked him, I said, "Hey, Dad, what's the fascination with Florida?" "What fascination?" I said, "Well, you got Florida on your arm." He says, "That's not Florida. That's Pocahontas." Okay, so the obvious question is, why do you have Pocahontas on your arm? At that point, I had spent way too much time of my life thinking about that green blotch on his arm. So think about it. You know what? I never thought that I would be quoting Ozzy Osbourne. I'm not going to try to imitate his voice. I don't want to disrespect the guy or anything like that. But his daughter Kelly was thinking about getting a tattoo. And now, mind you, he's got some serious ink on him too, But anyway, he said, "You know what? Here's something to think about. You want to be different? Everybody and their friend has a tattoo. Don't get a tattoo. You're going to be different." Here's something else you're going to think about too. Those tattoos might have been a good idea when they first went on, if you had the freedom to do it. As you get older, and we all know this, gravity is not your friend. Okay, so keep that in mind. I had another friend who had an uncle who was in the Navy, during World War II. This guy was covered with tattoos. And he's telling us about his uncle. He says he's coming over this week. You ought to come over and check him out. He's got a battleship on his chest. He's got anchors all over the place. He's got Battle of Midway on his arm, all that sort of thing. He had a hula girl on one bicep, and his wife made him tattoo on a bathing suit before she got married. And he said, "Come on over and see these tattoos." Well, okay, it sounds pretty cool to me. And he says, he's even got wood screws on his buttocks. I got something to do that week. I don't think I can make it. Maybe some other time. Everybody though, just keep that in mind. All right. Do you really need that much ink? Just because you're free to do something doesn't mean you should do something. All right. Hey, some things to keep in mind for the summer. Wizard World Tour is coming up in Columbus. That's terrific. It's August 4th. If you've never been to the Wizard World Tour, and they have one here in Cleveland as well, it's a chance to meet up with all of these great people that you grew up with on TV, sit down, talk with them, have a great time. They have panels and that sort of thing. But let's see who they have coming up. They have Barry Bostwick. Remember him from, Rocky Horror Picture Show, a lot of different things. Kate Beckinsale is going to be there. Who's that guy from, Sons of Anarchy? Michael Beach. He's going to be there as well. You know what? Everybody talks about this San Diego Comic-Con, which is no longer a Comic-Con, by the way. Why spend all that money to go to San Diego when you could just go down the road to Columbus, get the same effect, okay? And it's a lot more intimate, too, okay? Last issue of Northeast Ohio Boomer and Beyond, I mentioned how important the Sgt. Pepper Lonely Hearts Club Band album was when it was released in June of 1967. Now, there's a trivia question in there. You got to pick up the issue to get the answer, but it's an important one. It has a Cleveland connection. But the thing about Sgt. Pepper was they keep bringing out new versions of all these classic albums, and each one has like maybe a different mix or a different song or something like that. I just have to ask, how many times am I going to keep buying the same album? Maybe I should ask why I do keep buying the same album, because I keep buying them as soon as they come out, You know what? Another one, too. Rhino Records. I think you got to look online for this. Rhino Records puts out a lot of reissues, and they've got the Monkees 50th anniversary set. The Monkees. Okay, so why do I bring up the Monkees and the Beatles at the same time? Well, here's something to keep in mind. The Monkees were sort of an extension of the Beatles on TV. John Lennon was a great fan. There's a recording of Paul McCartney singing the Monkees theme. And one day Mike Nesmith of the Monkees was in London, and he says, he heard that the Beatles had heard about him, but he said, I got to try to get hold of John Lennon. So he called him up through an intermediary, and Lennon calls him back. He says, "You're in town for how long?" He says, "A week." He says, "Come and stay at my house." So he did. He stayed out in Surrey with John Lennon. And that night he said, "Hey, there's something I want you to check out. We're doing a song called A Day in the Life, and we got some friends coming in, so why don't you sit in?" So Mike Nesmith went along. I think Mickey Dolenz was there as well, Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, Pete Townsend, Keith Moon. All these wonderful people are there. And that guy was a monkey, and he's sitting there watching that. Books. Hey, this is another one. I love to read. We write books. My wife and I write books, but I love to read. But I love to read about that pop culture stuff that's really difficult to find. And there's a new company. Well, not a new company, but it's got new books all the time. It's called Bear Manor. Okay, this is a wonderful company, and they put out these books that probably would not do real well on the open market, but there's that niche market and they do real well. One of the books that I'm dying to get, it's on my Christmas list, is the biography of June Foray. Who's June Foray? Well, June Foray was the voice of Rocky the Flying Squirrel. She was Natasha. She played so many. She was Talkie Tina on that Twilight Zone episode where the doll comes after the guy and wants to kill him. So they've got all kinds of wonderful books like that, and it's all pop culture. That's what Northeast Ohio Boomer and Beyond is all about. It's all about pop culture. So I guess I'll just see you next issue. And until then, anybody know where I can buy some sparklers?